When a single father's three-word offer changes everything, strangers become family. Nate Harper had exactly 12 minutes before his daughter's fever medication wore off. He didn't have time to stop for the shivering woman in the wheelchair, abandoned outside a darkened pharmacy on the coldest October night of the year. He should have kept driving, but something in her eyes, the particular exhaustion of someone who'd stopped expecting kindness, made him pull over. 3 words would change 3 lives forever. Come with me. Because sometimes the people we save end up saving us right back. If this story touches your heart, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far these words travel. The fluorescent lights of Save Mart Pharmacy burned like accusation against the October darkness. Nate Harper's hands trembled as he juggled the white paper bag, his keys, and the phone pressed against his ear. His mother's voice crackling through the speaker with that particular blend of worry and judgment she'd perfected over 63 years. I told you she needed to see the doctor yesterday, Nathan. Mom, it's just a fever. The pharmacist said. The pharmacist isn't a doctor. Nate closed his eyes and counted to 3, the way his daughter Mia did when she was trying not to cry. The parking lot stretched empty around him, his 8-year-old Honda the only vehicle under the sputtering streetlights. 2:30 in the morning, and the world had that hollow quality it gets when everyone sensible is asleep. I know, Mom, but the urgent care wanted $200 up front, and I don't get paid until Friday, so right now children's ibuprofen is what we've got. He unlocked the car, tossing the medication onto the passenger seat. I need to go. She's with Mrs. Chen, and I promised I'd be back in 20 minutes. That woman charges too much. That woman answers her phone at 2 a.m. when my daughter spikes 103. I'll call you tomorrow. He ended the call before she could respond, before the familiar guilt could sink its teeth any deeper. The night air bit through his jacket. October in Chicago had no mercy, especially not this close to the lake. He'd grabbed whatever was closest when Mia's forehead had felt like a stovetop, which meant he was wearing his work shirt from the warehouse, the one with Harper stitched over the pocket in fading red thread, and jeans that had seen better decades. Nate started the engine, letting it warm for 30 seconds he couldn't afford to waste. The heater coughed out cold air that would maybe turn warm by the time he hit his street. He checked his phone. 2:37, Mrs. Chen charged by the hour, and every minute past 3 a.m. counted as a new hour. $60 more he didn't have. He was reaching for the gear shift when movement across the street caught his eye. At first he thought it was trash, something dark and formless against the concrete. The bus stop shelter stood empty, its plastic panels cracked, the bench inside long since removed. But the shape moved, and Nate's hand stilled on the steering wheel. A person. Someone was curled on the ground beside the shelter, knees drawn up, head down. As Nate watched, the figure shifted, trying to pull what looked like a jean jacket tighter against the wind. He should drive away. He needed to drive away. Mia was waiting, fever-bright and scared, probably wondering why Daddy was taking so long. Mrs. Chen was probably pacing her kitchen, the hourly rate ticking higher with each minute. But Nate had grown up on the South Side, back when his mother still believed in neighborhood watch and hot meals for anyone who knocked. Before his father left, before the money got tight, before the world taught them that kindness was a luxury they couldn't afford. Some lessons stick deeper than others. He pulled across the empty street and parked in front of the bus shelter. Up close, the person became clearer. A woman, young, maybe mid-20s, her dark hair hung in tangles around her face, and her clothes looked like they'd been slept in for days. But it was the wheelchair beside her that made Nate's chest tighten, folded and lying on its side like something discarded. He rolled down his window. Miss, you okay? She didn't look up. Nate killed the engine and stepped out, approaching slowly, the way he did when Mia had nightmares and needed careful handling. The wind cut straight through him, and he couldn't imagine what it felt like down on that concrete. Miss? He stopped a few feet away, hands visible, non-threatening. It's pretty cold out here. This time, she lifted her head. Even in the sickly yellow streetlight, he could see the exhaustion carved into her face. Her eyes were dark, wary, the kind of wariness that comes from experience. She looked at him the way Mia looked at the neighbor's dog, expecting teeth. I'm fine. Her voice was hoarse, probably from the cold. Bus is coming soon. Nate glanced at the shelter. No schedule posted, no route numbers. The kind of stop that had been abandoned when the city rerouted lines 2 years ago. He'd watched them paint over the route markers himself, standing at the same corner, waiting for interviews that never led to jobs that paid enough. "No bus comes here anymore," he said gently. "They canceled this route in 23. Something flickered across her face, not surprise exactly, more like confirmation of something she'd already suspected. She looked away, back down at her knees. "Then I'll wait for the next one." "There is no next one." "Then I'll wait anyway." Nate crouched down, bringing himself to her eye level. This close, he could see she was shivering, her lips tinged faintly blue. Her jean jacket was thin, meant for September, not late October. Her hands, curled into fists, were red and chapped. "How long have you been out here?" She didn't answer. "Miss, I'm not a cop. I'm not social services. I'm just a guy who works at a warehouse, and my daughter's got a fever, and I really need to get home, but I can't drive away and leave you freezing on the sidewalk." He paused. "How long?" Her jaw worked for a moment, then, barely audible. "Since yesterday morning." The words hit him like a fist. 24 hours. She'd been out here for 24 hours, in temperatures that had barely cracked 45 degrees during the day and were now diving toward freezing. Christ. He rubbed his face, aware he was burning minutes he didn't have, unable to make himself care. Okay. Do you have somewhere to go? Someone I can call?" "No." "Family? Friends?" "No." "A shelter?" "There's one on Madison that they're full." She finally looked at him directly, and the emptiness in her eyes made him wish she hadn't. "They've been full for 3 weeks. I had my name on a waiting list, but..." She shrugged, the motion defeated. Waiting doesn't stop winter. Nate's phone buzzed in his pocket, probably Mrs. Chen, wondering where he was. He ignored it. "What's your name?" She hesitated, like even that small piece of information was dangerous to give. Then, Lena Ward." "I'm Nate Harper." He stood, his knees protesting. 34 was too young to feel this old. "Lena, I'm going to get your wheelchair, and then I'm going to help you into my car, and you're going to come home with me." The wariness in her eyes sharpened into fear. "No. You'll freeze to death out here. I've survived worse." "That doesn't mean you should have to survive this." He moved toward the wheelchair, but her voice stopped him. "What's the catch?" He turned back. She was watching him with the intensity of someone doing calculations, weighing risks, looking for the trap. "The catch? Nobody helps for free." Her voice was flat, factual. "There's always a catch. So what is it? You want money? Something else?" The way she said something else made Nate's stomach turn. "The catch is that my 7-year-old daughter has a fever and needs her medicine, and I'm already late getting home to her. The catch is that my neighbor charges me by the hour, and I'm burning through cash I don't have standing here talking. The catch is that it's 38 degrees, you've been outside for a full day, and I can't sleep tonight knowing I left you here." He met her eyes. "That's the catch, Lena. I'm going to feel like garbage if you die of exposure because I was too busy to give a damn." She stared at him for a long moment. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. The wind rattled the plastic panels of the bus shelter. 3 hours, she said finally. "What?" "Give me 3 hours. Somewhere warm, just for 3 hours, and then you can drop me wherever. I won't ask for anything else." Nate wanted to argue, to tell her 3 hours wasn't enough, that whatever had put her on this street corner wasn't going to be solved by a brief warm-up and a return to the cold. But he recognized the look on her face. It was the same look Mia got when she was negotiating for 5 more minutes before bed. Push too hard, and she'd shut down completely. "Okay," he said. 3 hours. He lifted the wheelchair, surprised by how light it was. Aluminum frame, worn cushion, one wheel that didn't quite spin right. Lena watched him set it up, still wary, still calculating. When he offered his hand, she looked at it like it might bite. "I can do it myself." "I'm sure you can, but it's icy and I'm here, so let me help." She took his hand. Her fingers were ice cold and he could feel her trembling as she pulled herself up, transferring from the concrete to the chair with practiced efficiency. She must have been doing this a while. The movement was automatic, muscle memory, taking over where strength failed. He helped her to the car, opened the passenger door, waited while she transferred again. She moved with careful dignity, refusing to let him do more than he had to. The wheelchair folded with a metallic click, and he stowed it in the back seat next to the child's car seat that Mia had been begging to retire for the last 6 months. Lena stared at the car seat as Nate slid into the driver's seat. You really have a daughter? Yeah, Mia. She just turned 7 last month. He started the engine, cranking the heat as high as it would go. She had a birthday party with 5 friends and enough sugar to fuel a rocket launch. Took me 3 days to find all the glitter. Lena didn't smile, but something in her posture softened slightly. Nate pulled onto the empty street, heading north toward his neighborhood. The pharmacy lights faded behind them. You're really just taking me home. That's it. That's it. And in 3 hours you'll drive me back. If that's what you want. He glanced at her. But I'm going to try to convince you otherwise. She pulled the seatbelt tighter across her chest, a defensive gesture. People don't just help. Some people do. Not in my experience. Then your experience has been with the wrong people. She laughed, but it was bitter, sharp-edged. You have no idea. They drove in silence for a while. Nate's neighborhood wasn't far. 15 minutes on a good night, 20 with the lights. The streets were empty except for a few delivery trucks making early rounds. The city looked different at this hour, stripped of pretense, just concrete and steel, and the people who couldn't afford to stop moving. Why were you at a 24-hour pharmacy at 2 in the morning? Lena asked suddenly. Mia's fever, 103. She needs ibuprofen every 4 hours and we ran out. You couldn't wait until morning? Could you wait for warmth until morning? She went quiet again. Nate's phone buzzed twice more before he pulled into his street. The neighborhood was a patchwork of small houses, mostly rentals, mostly people working 2 jobs to keep roofs overhead. His place was a narrow bungalow with peeling paint and a front porch that sagged on one side. A single light burned in Mrs. Chen's window next door. He parked in the driveway and grabbed the medication. Wait here. I need to check on Mia and pay Mrs. Chen. 5 minutes. I'm not going anywhere. Lena's voice was dry, pointed. He jogged to the front door, keys ready. Mrs. Chen opened before he could knock. Her face creased with concern and calculation in equal measure. She's sleeping, Mrs. Chen said, her accent thick, her eyes sharp. Fever came down a little. I gave her water and cold cloth. Thank you. Nate pulled out his wallet, counting bills. I'm sorry I took so long. 3 hours, $90. He handed her 5 20s. Keep the change. I know it's late. Mrs. Chen counted the bills, then looked past him to the car in the driveway. You have visitor? Something like that. 3:30 in the morning is strange time for visitors. It's been a strange night. He moved toward the door. Thanks again, Mrs. Chen. She caught his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Nathan, you are good boy, good father, but good people. She paused, searching for words. Good people sometimes make bad choices trying to help wrong people. She's not wrong people. She's just cold. Everyone has a story. Not all stories are your responsibility. Nate gently extracted his arm. I'll be careful, promise. He slipped inside, moving quietly through the small house. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit a table. Mia's room was first on the right, and he eased the door open. She was sprawled across her bed, blankets kicked off despite the fever, her dark hair a halo of tangles on the pillow. Her breathing was even, peaceful. The thermometer on her nightstand read 100.2, still elevated, but better. He set the medication bottle beside it, pulled the blankets back over her small body, and pressed his lips to her forehead. Still warm, but not burning. Love you, kiddo, he whispered. Back outside, Lena was exactly where he'd left her, staring straight ahead through the windshield. She tensed when he opened her door. Everything okay? She asked. Fever's down a bit. She's sleeping. He pulled the wheelchair from the back seat. Come on, let's get you inside. 3 hours, Lena repeated. 3 hours, he agreed. The house was warm, the old furnace rattling but functional. Nate helped Lena inside, acutely aware of how small the space was, how worn everything looked through a stranger's eyes. The couch was second-hand, its cushions sagging. The coffee table was scarred with crayon marks from Mia's younger years. Toys clustered in one corner, a basket of dolls, a half-finished puzzle, a plastic telescope that had been last month's obsession. But it was clean. That mattered to Nate. The floors were swept, the surfaces cleared. He'd learned early that being poor didn't mean being dirty, and he'd made sure Mia learned the same. Lena took it all in with unreadable eyes. Nate gestured to the couch. Sit. I'll make something hot. You don't have to. 3 hours, remember? You're my guest for 3 hours. Let me be hospitable. He left her in the living room and moved to the kitchen, filling a pot with water, setting it to boil. Soup. He had canned soup, the good kind with actual vegetables. He pulled down 2 bowls, found crackers that weren't stale, set the table for 2. When he returned to the living room, Lena had transferred to the couch, the wheelchair folded beside her. She was looking at a framed photo on the side table. Nate and Mia at the zoo, both grinning, Mia holding a stuffed elephant nearly as big as she was. She looks like you, Lena said quietly. Poor kid got my nose. And your smile. That's from her mom. The words came automatically, the same script he used whenever anyone asked. She passed when Mia was 2. Lena set the photo down carefully. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. Not long enough that it didn't hurt, but long enough that the hurt had gone familiar, manageable. Soup's almost ready. You want to eat in here or at the table? I can make it to the table. She insisted on transferring to the kitchen chair herself, waving off his offered hand with the same careful dignity. Nate ladled soup into bowls, set out crackers, poured water into mismatched glasses. They ate in silence at first. Lena held the bowl like it was precious, sipping slowly, carefully, like someone who'd learned not to take hot meals for granted. Color was starting to return to her face, the blue tinge fading from her lips. This is good, she said finally. It's canned soup. It's warm. She met his eyes. Thank you. You're welcome. I mean it. I know. She paused. I know I didn't make this easy. I'm not good at trusting people. Can't imagine why. The words came out drier than he intended, and he saw the corner of her mouth twitch. Fair point. What happened? Nate asked. If you want to tell me. If not, that's okay too. Lena was quiet for a long moment, her spoon tracing patterns in the soup. When she spoke, her voice was flat, reciting facts. I was an electrical engineering student, junior year, working construction to pay for school, installing commercial wiring, industrial sites. Good money. I was good at it. She paused. There was an accident, new building, downtown. The scaffolding wasn't secured properly. I fell 3 stories. Nate's hand tightened on his spoon. Fractured my spine. T12 compression fracture with spinal cord damage. Paralyzed from the waist down. She said it clinically, like reading a medical report. The company said it was my fault. Said I wasn't following safety protocols. They had documentation, fabricated but official. My lawyer said we could fight it, but I'd need money for depositions, expert witnesses, medical testimony. I didn't have money. I had hospital bills. What about insurance? The company's insurance denied the claim, said the accident was due to my negligence, not their liability. I tried to sue, but without resources. She shrugged. Poor plaintiff, big corporation. You know how that story ends. You lost everything. Scholarship required full-time status. Can't be full-time when you're learning to use a wheelchair and drowning in medical debt. Lost the scholarship, lost my apartment, lost... She trailed off. Lost everything that mattered. Nate set down his spoon, appetite gone. That's not right. Right doesn't pay bills. Lena's voice was hard now, armored. I stayed with friends for a while, then friends of friends, then shelters, then bus stops. She looked around the kitchen. This is the first real meal I've had in 2 weeks, the first time I've been warm in longer than that. How long have you been outside? A month, maybe 6 weeks. Time gets weird when you're just trying to survive each day. Jesus. Nate rubbed his face. Lena, you can't go back out there. I have to. I don't have anywhere else. You have here. She laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You're going to let a homeless stranger live in your house with your daughter. I'm going to let another human being who got screwed by a system that's supposed to protect people stay somewhere safe until we can figure out something better. He leaned forward. Look, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm barely keeping my own head above water. But I've got a couch, and I've got heat, and I've got food. That's more than you have right now. Why? The question came out raw, confused. Why would you do this? You don't know me. I could be dangerous. I could rob you. Could you? No, but you don't know that. I know enough. Nate stood, clearing the bowls. I know you've been dealt a garbage hand. I know you're exhausted and scared and too proud to ask for help even when you're freezing to death. I know you're sitting in my kitchen thinking there must be a catch because nobody's been decent to you in so long you forgot what decent looks like. He turned to face her. And I know that if I send you back out there tonight, I'm part of the problem. Lena's eyes were bright, too bright. She blinked hard, looking away. 3 hours, she whispered. You said 3 hours. I lied. He pulled a blanket from the hall closet, brought it back to the living room. You can have the couch tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out something more permanent. But right now, you're going to sleep somewhere warm, and in the morning, we'll deal with whatever comes next. I don't have anything to give you. No money, I don't want your money. Nate spread the blanket over the couch. I want you to stop freezing on street corners. That's it. That's the whole deal. She transferred back to the couch, moving slowly, exhaustion written in every line of her body. When she was settled, blanket pulled up to her chin, she looked at him with those wary, tired eyes. Why are you like this? Like what? Kind, when the world isn't. Nate thought about his mother, back when she'd still believed in neighborhood meals. Thought about his wife, who'd volunteered at shelters every Thursday until Mia was born. Thought about Mia, who brought half her lunch to school every day to share with a kid whose parents forgot to pack one. Because someone has to be, he said simply, and because kindness isn't expensive, it just takes paying attention. He turned off the lights, checked the locks, looked in on Mia one more time. She was still sleeping peacefully, fever down, breathing easy. He stood in her doorway for a moment, wondering if he'd made the right choice. Mrs. Chen's warning echoed in his head. Good people sometimes make bad choices trying to help wrong people. But Lena wasn't wrong people. She was just people who'd run out of options. In his own room, barely big enough for the bed and a dresser, Nate set his alarm for 6. 3 hours until he had to be at the warehouse. 3 hours until Mia woke up and discovered a stranger on their couch. 3 hours to second-guess every decision he'd made tonight. He didn't second-guess. He fell asleep thinking about a woman in a wheelchair, freezing on a street corner, waiting for a bus that would never come. And he fell asleep glad, fiercely, stubbornly glad that he'd pulled over. Because some nights, the right thing and the hard thing are the same thing. And some nights, 3 words, come with me, are enough to change everything. Morning arrived with the smell of coffee and the sound of small feet padding down the hallway. Nate had been awake for 20 minutes, sitting at the kitchen table with his phone, trying to calculate how much extra a third person would add to his grocery budget. The math wasn't encouraging. Daddy? Mia stood in the kitchen doorway, her hair standing up in sleep-wild spikes, wearing her favorite pajamas with the dinosaurs on them. Her forehead looked less flushed, her eyes clearer. The fever had broken. Hey, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Better. She patted closer, climbing into his lap despite being too big for it, all bony knees and elbows. My head doesn't hurt anymore. Good. That's really good. He pressed his lips to her forehead, confirming what he could see. Normal temperature. You scared me last night. I know. I heard you on the phone with Grandma. Mia twisted to look at him. She was mad at you again. Grandma's always a little mad at me. It's how she shows love. Mia giggled, then stopped abruptly, her attention caught by something in the living room. Nate followed her gaze to where Lena was still asleep on the couch, curled under the blanket, her dark hair spilling over the armrest. Who's that? Nate took a breath. He'd known this moment was coming, had rehearsed different versions of this conversation in the shower, but none of them felt quite right now that Mia's curious brown eyes were fixed on him. That's Lena. She's going to be staying with us for a little while. Why? because she needed help, and we have a couch. Mia processed this with the seriousness she brought to all new information. At 7, she was already a careful observer, the kind of kid who watched before she spoke, who thought before she acted. Her teacher called it maturity. Nate called it what happens when a kid grows up understanding that money is tight and life is complicated. Is she nice? I think so, but you can decide for yourself when she wakes up. Okay. Mia slid off his lap, completely accepting this new development in the way children sometimes do. Can I have cereal? After you take your medicine? But I feel better. Medicine first. That's how we keep feeling better. Mia made a face but accepted the spoonful of ibuprofen without complaint. She was pouring her cereal when Lena stirred in the living room, the blanket shifting as she woke. Nate saw the moment consciousness returned, the brief confusion, the sudden tension as she remembered where she was, the careful relaxation when she recognized her surroundings. She sat up slowly, wincing, and reached for her wheelchair. Morning, Nate called from the kitchen. Coffee? Lena looked toward the kitchen, spotting Mia at the table with her cereal bowl. Her expression went carefully neutral. I should probably go. You should probably have breakfast first. Nate pulled down another mug. Mia, this is Lena. Lena, this is my daughter Mia. Mia waved her spoon in greeting, milk dripping. Hi, Daddy says you're staying on our couch. Just for a little while, Lena said quietly, transferring to her wheelchair with that practiced efficiency. She moved toward the kitchen, stopping in the doorway. I don't want to intrude. You're not intruding. You're having breakfast. Nate set the coffee mug on the table, along with sugar and the last of their milk. Toast okay? I've got strawberry jam. I can't. You can, and you will, because I made enough for 3 and I hate wasting food. It was a lie, but a small one. He'd made extra specifically for her. Lena wheeled herself to the table, accepting the coffee with hands that still trembled slightly. Mia watched her with open curiosity, the kind children have before they learn to be subtle. Why do you have a wheelchair? Mia asked. Mia, it's okay. Lena wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. I was in an accident. My legs don't work anymore. Does it hurt? Sometimes. Not as much as it used to. I broke my arm last year, Mia offered, holding up her left arm as evidence, even though the cast had been gone for months. It hurt a lot, but then it got better. Will your legs get better? No, sweetheart. This is permanent. Oh. Mia absorbed this, then returned to her cereal. That's sad. Yeah, Lena said softly. It is. Nate brought toast to the table, along with the jam and a knife. The 3 of them ate in a silence that wasn't quite comfortable but wasn't hostile either, more like the careful quiet of strangers learning to share space. I have school today, Mia announced, finishing her cereal. Mrs. Peterson says we're doing volcanoes in science. Can I still go, Daddy, since I'm not sick anymore? Nate checked her forehead again. Temperature's normal. No coughing, no sneezing? Nope. Then yes, you can go. But if you start feeling bad, you tell the nurse right away. I will. Mia carried her bowl to the sink, then paused, looking at Lena. Are you going to be here when I get home? Lena glanced at Nate, uncertain. He nodded, almost imperceptibly. I think so, Lena said. Good. You can help me with my volcano project. We're supposed to make it erupt, and Daddy's not good at science stuff. Hey, Nate protested. I'm okay at science. You thought baking soda was baking powder. That was one time. Mia grinned, already heading toward her room to get dressed. The house felt bigger with her energy filling it, the morning light streaming through the kitchen window making everything seem possible. Lena set down her toast, barely touched. She's wonderful. She is. Nate refilled his coffee, and way too smart for her own good. She takes after you. She takes after her mother. I just try to keep up. He sat back down, meeting Lena's eyes across the table. Listen, about last night, I meant what I said. You can stay as long as you need to. You don't know me. I know you've been dealt a raw deal. I know you're trying to survive an impossible situation. That's enough. Is it? Lena's voice was sharp, defensive. You have a daughter to think about, a stranger in your house. You're not a stranger anymore. You had breakfast at my table. That makes you people we know." He smiled, trying to soften it. "Look, I'm not saying this is permanent. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I've got a couch that's not being used and you need somewhere safe. Let's start there and figure out the rest as we go." "Why are you doing this?" "I told you last night." "No." She leaned forward. "Really? Why? What do you get out of this?" Nate thought about it, turning his coffee mug in his hands. "When Mia's mom died, I was a mess. 26 years old, working retail, suddenly a single father with no idea what I was doing. My mother wanted to take Mia, said I couldn't handle it. Maybe she was right. But the people in this neighborhood, Mrs. Chen, the guy who runs the corner store, the woman who managed my apartment building, they just helped. Brought food, babysat when I had shifts, taught me how to do ponytails that didn't look like bird nests." He looked up. "They didn't ask why. They didn't want anything back. They just helped because that's what you do when someone's drowning, and now you're paying it forward. Now I'm trying to be the kind of person who doesn't drive past someone freezing on a street corner." He stood, clearing the breakfast dishes. "You don't have to decide anything right now. Just stay today. Rest. Get warm. Tomorrow we can talk about next steps." Lena was quiet for a long time. Then, barely audible. "Okay. Today." Nate got Mia ready for school, packing her lunch, making sure she had her homework folder, listening to her chatter about volcanoes and her friend Emma's new puppy. Lena stayed in the kitchen, nursing her coffee, watching them with an expression Nate couldn't quite read. At the door, Mia turned back. "Bye, Lena. Don't let Daddy burn the house down while I'm gone." "I burned macaroni one time." 3 times, Daddy. 3 times. Mia was already running down the sidewalk toward Mrs. Chen's house, where she waited for the school bus every morning with Mrs. Chen's grandson. Nate watched until she was safely at Mrs. Chen's door, waved to his neighbor, then returned inside. Lena had moved to the living room, staring at the small TV in the corner. "I need to head to work in about an hour," Nate said. "But you're welcome to stay. There's food in the fridge, TV works, bathrooms down the hall. Make yourself at home." "I can't just stay here all day doing nothing." "Why not? You've been outside for 6 weeks. Take a day to rest." "I don't deserve—" "Stop." Nate sat on the coffee table facing her. "That right there. That sentence. You don't get to finish it. You deserve warmth. You deserve food. You deserve basic human dignity. The universe doesn't operate on a deserve system anyway. It's random and chaotic, and sometimes bad things happen to good people for no reason at all. But that doesn't mean we can't try to balance the scales a little." Lena's eyes were bright again, that same too bright shine from last night. "You really believe that?" "I have to. Otherwise, what's the point?" He left her in the living room and got ready for work. Warehouse uniform, steel-toed boots, the lunch he'd packed the night before. When he emerged, Lena was looking at the framed photos scattered around the room. Most were of Mia, but a few showed a younger Nate with a woman who had Mia's smile. "Your wife was beautiful," Lena said. She was. Nate grabbed his keys. Her name was Sarah. She had a heart defect nobody knew about. One day she was fine. The next... He stopped. "Life doesn't give warnings." "I'm sorry. Me too." He headed for the door, then paused. "Lena? The number for the house phone is on the fridge. My cell's there too. If you need anything, call. If there's an emergency, call 911. If you decide to leave..." He met her eyes. "If you decide to leave, at least take the blanket. I'm not going to steal from you. I'm not worried about stealing. I'm worried about you being cold." He left before she could respond, before the tightness in his chest could turn into something harder to control. The drive to the warehouse took 20 minutes, and he spent all of them second-guessing himself. Mrs. Chen's warning played on repeat. His mother would lose her mind if she knew. He had a daughter to protect, bills he could barely pay, a life that was already complicated enough. But he kept seeing Lena on that street corner, curled against the concrete, waiting for a bus that would never come. The warehouse was a sprawling building on the edge of the industrial district, all concrete floors and fluorescent lights, and the constant beep of forklifts. Nate worked receiving, checking shipments, updating inventory. It was mind-numbing work, but it paid $12.50 an hour, and the insurance covered Mia. His supervisor, Dave, was already on the floor when Nate clocked in. "You look like hell, Harper." "Mia was sick last night. Didn't get much sleep." "She okay now?" "Fever broke this morning." "Good. My kid had that same bug last week. Brutal." Dave handed him a clipboard. "We've got 3 trucks coming in today. Start with the one in Bay 4. The morning passed in a blur of boxes and paperwork. Nate's phone stayed silent in his locker, which either meant everything was fine, or Lena had decided to leave and was too polite to call. He didn't let himself check until lunch break. No messages. No calls. He ate a sandwich in the break room, half listening to his coworkers argue about football, and tried not to worry. She was an adult. She could make her own choices. If she wanted to leave, that was her right. But when his shift ended and he drove home through the late afternoon traffic, his hands were tight on the steering wheel. The house was warm when he walked in, and Lena was exactly where he'd left her, on the couch, wrapped in the blanket. But she'd moved things. The living room was cleaner, the toys organized, the coffee table cleared of clutter. "You didn't have to do that," Nate said. Lena looked up from the book she was reading, one of Mia's, about space. "I needed something to do. Hope that's okay." "It's fine. It's good." He dropped his keys on the counter. "How was your day?" "Warm." She said it like a confession. "I took a shower. Hope that's okay too. I was careful with the water." "Lena, you don't have to ration the hot water. Shower as long as you want." "I'm not used to—" She stopped. "I'm trying not to be a burden." "You're not a burden. You're a person who needed help." He moved to the kitchen, pulling out ingredients for dinner. "Mia gets home in about an hour. She's going to want to show you her volcano project, and she's going to talk your ear off about it. Fair warning." "I don't mind." "You say that now." Lena smiled, small, tentative, but real. It changed her whole face, made her look younger, less guarded. Nate found himself smiling back. They fell into an easy rhythm over the next hour. Nate cooked while Lena set the table. She insisted, and he let her. She asked questions about the neighborhood, about Mia's school, about his work. Normal questions. The kind people ask when they're trying to understand a new space. When Mia burst through the door, backpack flying, she launched immediately into a detailed explanation of volcanic eruptions that involved a lot of hand gestures and scientific terms she mostly pronounced correctly. "And Mrs. Peterson said we have to bring our materials tomorrow, and I need baking soda and vinegar and food coloring, and can Lena help because you're bad at science, Daddy. You know you are." "Breathe, Mia." Mia took a breath, then turned to Lena with hopeful eyes. "Will you help?" Lena glanced at Nate, who shrugged. "If you want to." "I'd love to," Lena said. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Mia talked non-stop, barely pausing to eat, while Lena listened with genuine interest, and Nate refereed when the conversation threatened to veer into one of Mia's famous tangents. After dishes, they spread the volcano materials on the kitchen table. Lena knew what she was doing. She guided Mia through building a structurally sound papier-mâché mountain, explained the chemical reaction they'd use for the eruption, and kept everything simple enough for a 7-year-old to understand, but complex enough to feel real. "You're good at this," Nate observed from his position at the sink. "I used to tutor engineering students, before." Lena helped Mia smooth out a particularly stubborn wrinkle in the paper. "I like teaching." "You should do it again." "Hard to teach when you're homeless." "Good thing you're not homeless anymore." Lena looked at him, and something passed between them. Not quite understanding, but maybe the beginning of it. The start of trust. The volcano took 2 hours to complete. By the time they finished, Mia was yawning, her earlier energy depleted. Nate sent her for a bath while he and Lena cleaned up the craft supplies. "Thank you," Lena said as she wiped down the table, "for letting me help. It felt good to be useful." "You are useful. You're also a guest, so you don't have to earn your keep." "I want to contribute. I can't just take and take." "Then contribute. Help with dinner. Talk to Mia about science. Organize my disaster of a living room." He met her eyes. "But do it because you want to, not because you think you owe me something. We're not keeping score here." Lena nodded slowly. "I'm not used to that." "I'm getting that impression." Mia emerged from the bath in her dinosaur pajamas, smelling like lavender shampoo and childhood. She hugged Nate goodnight, then surprised both adults by hugging Lena, too. "Thanks for helping with my volcano. You're really smart." "You're pretty smart yourself," Lena said, her voice thick. After Mia was tucked in bed, Nate found Lena in the living room, staring at nothing. He sat in the armchair across from the couch. "You okay?" "I can't remember the last time someone hugged me." Lena's voice was barely above a whisper. "Isn't that pathetic? 6 weeks on the street, and I forgot what it felt like to be touched with kindness." "That's not pathetic. That's heartbreaking. I had a whole life once. Friends, classes, a future. And then one bad day, one accident, and it all just..." She made a gesture like something disappearing. "Gone. Like I was never there at all." "You're still here. That counts for something. Does it?" She looked at him. "What's the point of surviving if you're just existing? I spent 6 weeks figuring out which dumpsters had the best food, which corners were safest to sleep on, how to stay invisible so people wouldn't bother me or call the cops. That's not living. That's just not dying." Nate didn't have an answer for that. He'd felt that way himself after Sarah died, going through motions, checking boxes, keeping Mia fed and housed, but not really feeling alive. It had taken months to climb out of that hole. Some days he wasn't sure he was out yet. "Maybe the point isn't to have all the answers," he said finally. "Maybe it's just to keep moving forward and hope tomorrow's a little better than today. And if it's not, then you try again the next day, and the next, until eventually one day is better and then another, and somewhere along the way you realize you're not just surviving anymore." Lena pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's the hardest thing in the world. But you've already done the hardest part." "What's that?" "You're still here. You didn't give up out there on that street corner. You got in my car. You stayed. That takes more courage than you think." They sat in silence for a while, the house settling around them with its familiar creaks and sighs. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed, a dog barked, normal sounds, the soundtrack of everyday life. "I need to find a job," Lena said eventually. "I can't stay here indefinitely without contributing. We can work on that, tomorrow if you want. I know some people who might be hiring." For someone in a wheelchair with no fixed address and a lawsuit hanging over her head? For someone who's smart, capable, and good with kids? Nate stood, stretching. "Get some sleep. We'll figure it out." He was almost to his bedroom when Lena called his name. "Yeah? Why aren't you afraid of me? Everyone else is. They see the wheelchair or they hear I'm homeless, and they look at me like I might break or steal something or both. But you just..." She struggled for words. "You just treat me like a person." "That's because you are a person. The wheelchair doesn't change that. Neither does being homeless." He leaned against the doorframe. "I don't know what people did to make you think you're less than human, but they were wrong. And I'm sorry they made you believe it." Lena didn't respond, but her eyes said everything her voice couldn't. Nate went to bed thinking about second chances and stubborn hope, about the difference between charity and dignity, about a 7-year-old girl who hugged without hesitation and a woman who'd forgotten what kindness felt like. And he went to bed certain, absolutely certain, that pulling over at that bus stop had been the rightest thing he'd done in a long time. Even if he had no idea where this road would lead, he knew they were moving in the right direction. Sometimes that's enough. The morning Lena fixed the outlet, everything changed. It had been 2 weeks since that first night. 2 weeks of Lena sleeping on the couch, contributing where she could, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. She helped Mia with homework, organized the chaos of Nate's kitchen cabinets, and tried to make herself small enough that her presence wouldn't become a burden. Every evening, she expected Nate to sit her down and explain that this arrangement had run its course. Every morning, he just made coffee and asked what she wanted for breakfast. The outlet in Mia's room had been sparking for months. Nate had meant to fix it, had watched a YouTube video about electrical work, had bought the replacement parts. But between work and Mia and the constant scramble to keep everything together, it kept sliding down his priority list. He'd put a piece of tape over it and told Mia not to use that socket. On a Saturday morning, while Nate was grocery shopping and Mia was at a birthday party, Lena noticed the tape peeling away. She wheeled herself to Mia's room and stared at the outlet for a long moment. When Nate returned home, arms full of grocery bags, Lena was in the kitchen washing her hands. The toolbox sat on the counter, and she had that particular expression people get when they've done something they're not sure about. "I fixed the outlet in Mia's room," she said without preamble. Nate set down the groceries. "You what?" "The outlet. It was dangerous. The wiring was loose, and the receptacle was damaged. I replaced it." She dried her hands on a dish towel, not meeting his eyes. "I hope that's okay. I found the replacement parts in your junk drawer, and I know I should have asked first, but you were out, and it really was a fire hazard. Lena." He waited until she looked at him. "You know how to do electrical work?" "I told you I was studying electrical engineering. I worked construction." "I know, but I thought—" He stopped, recognizing the assumption for what it was. "Can you look at the light in the bathroom? It's been flickering for a month." Something shifted in her expression. Not quite hope, but close. "Yeah, I can do that." By the time Mia came home from the party, sugar high and chattering about cake, Lena had fixed 3 outlets, 2 light switches, and identified a junction box in the basement that was badly out of code. She sat at the kitchen table with a hand-drawn diagram, explaining to Nate exactly what needed to be replaced and why. "This house was probably wired in the 70s, she said, pointing to her sketch. "It's not terrible, but it's not great either. You've got aluminum wiring in some places, which is a fire risk. The main panel is undersized for modern electrical loads, and whoever did the kitchen rewiring, the previous owner's nephew, he said he knew what he was doing." "He lied." Lena tapped the diagram. "None of this is urgent, but it should be addressed eventually. I can do most of it myself if you want. I'd need to buy some materials, but the labor would be free. I'm not letting you work for free. You're letting me live here for free. That's different." "Is it?" She met his eyes. "Nate, I need to do something. I need to feel useful. Let me fix your house, please." Mia climbed into Lena's lap without asking, the way she'd started doing over the past week. She looked at the diagram with serious concentration. "Are you going to make our lights better?" Mia asked. "I'm going to make them safer," Lena said. "Can you make my room brighter? I can't read at night without turning on the big light, and it's too bright." "I can install a dimmer switch. Would you like that?" "Yes!" Mia bounced with excitement, nearly falling off Lena's lap. Lena caught her automatically, steadying her, and Mia just grinned and kept talking. "And can you make the bathroom light not buzz? It sounds like bees, and I don't like bees." "I can definitely fix that." Nate watched them together. His daughter, who'd been wary of strangers since Sarah died, sprawled comfortably across Lena's lap like she'd been doing it her whole life. Lena, who'd been so guarded that first night, now relaxed enough to smile at Mia's enthusiasm. Something warm and complicated settled in his chest. "Okay," he said, "you can fix the house, but I'm buying the materials and we're calling it an even trade. Deal?" Lena extended her hand. "Deal." They shook on it, and Nate tried to ignore how right her hand felt in his. The electrical work became Lena's project. Nate gave her a budget, and she stretched it further than he thought possible, finding deals at salvage yards and discount suppliers. She worked methodically, room by room, bringing the house up to code. Mia became her assistant, handing her tools and asking endless questions that Lena answered with patience Nate hadn't known existed. "Why do wires have different colors?" Mia asked, watching Lena replace a switch. "So we know what they do. Black is hot. That's the wire that brings power in. White is neutral. It completes the circuit. Green or bare copper is ground. That's for safety, in case something goes wrong." "What happens if you mix them up?" "Bad things. Fire, electric shock, equipment damage. That's why we're careful and we double-check everything." "Is that why you test everything with that beepy thing?" "This is called a multimeter. And yes, we never assume anything is safe. We always verify." Mia absorbed this with the seriousness of a student learning sacred knowledge. "When I grow up, can I do electricity stuff like you?" Lena's hand stilled on the wire she was stripping. "You can be anything you want to be, sweetheart." "I want to be like you." Nate, listening from the hallway, had to turn away before the emotion in his throat became visible. 3 weeks in, Mrs. Chen finally said something. She caught Nate getting his mail one evening, her expression stern. "The woman is still living with you. Her name is Lena, and yes, she is." Nathan, this is not wise. Maybe not, but it's kind. Mrs. Chen's expression softened slightly. Kind does not pay bills. Kind does not protect little girls from strangers who might be dangerous. She's not dangerous. She's just someone who got dealt a bad hand. You say this now, but you know nothing about her, her past, her family, her... I know she's good with Mia. I know she's fixing my house better than any contractor could. I know she's honest and careful and trying harder than anyone I've ever met to earn something she doesn't need to earn. He met Mrs. Chen's eyes. I know she needed help, and I had the ability to give it. That's enough for me. Mrs. Chen studied him for a long moment. Then she sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. You are your mother's son, too kind for this world. That's not the insult you think it is. It is worry, not insult. She patted his arm. But I see you will not be moved, so I will watch. If she hurts you or Mia, she won't. If she does, I will know, and I will have words. Nate smiled despite himself. I'd expect nothing less. But Mrs. Chen's concern planted seeds of doubt that grew in the quiet moments. Late at night, when the house was still and Lena was asleep on the couch, Nate wondered if he was being reckless. He knew almost nothing about her beyond what she'd shared that first night. No family history, no references, no background check. He was trusting his gut and Mia's instincts, which felt either brave or foolish depending on the hour. The answer came on a Tuesday afternoon in the form of a phone call. Nate was at work when his phone rang, an unknown number with a Chicago area code. He almost didn't answer. Telemarketers had gotten aggressive lately, but something made him pick up. Mr. Harper, this is Jennifer Walsh from Walsh & Associates. I'm an attorney representing Lena Ward in her lawsuit against Morrison Construction. Nate's heart kicked into a higher gear. Is she okay? She's fine, but I need to speak with you about her current living situation. Is now a good time? He stepped into the warehouse break room, closing the door. I'm listening. Lena listed you as her current address on her case documents. I need to verify that this is accurate and that you're aware you may be contacted as part of discovery. I'm aware. He wasn't, but he would be now. Mr. Harper, I'm going to be direct with you. Lena's case has been stagnant for 8 months. We haven't had the resources to move forward, and she hasn't had the stability to pursue it aggressively. But yesterday, something changed. Walsh paused. We found a witness. Nate gripped the phone tighter. What kind of witness? A former Morrison employee who was on site the day of the accident. He's willing to testify that the scaffolding was improperly secured, that the safety protocols were inadequate, and that the company falsified records to avoid liability. His testimony could change everything. That's good, right? That's what you need? It's exactly what we need. But here's the thing. This witness came forward because he heard Lena was homeless. He felt guilty about what happened to her, but he didn't know how to find her until a mutual acquaintance mentioned seeing her at a shelter. Walsh's voice softened. Mr. Harper, the fact that Lena now has stable housing, that she's living somewhere safe, it matters. It means we can actually pursue this case. It means discovery, depositions, potentially a trial. Are you prepared for what that might mean? What does it mean? It means lawyers showing up at your door. It means Lena might need to miss work for depositions. Oh, she mentioned she's been doing electrical work for you? That's good. Establishes employment. It means the defense will try to paint her as opportunistic, and they'll scrutinize every aspect of her current life to undermine her credibility. Walsh paused. It means your household becomes part of the public record. Nate leaned against the break room wall. Will it help her win? I can't promise anything, but yes, I think it significantly improves our chances. Then we'll deal with whatever comes. You should discuss this with Lena first. She may not want to drag you into her legal battle. I'll talk to her, but Ms. Walsh, whatever she needs to win this case, I'm in. When he got home that evening, Lena was in the basement, rewiring the laundry room. Mia was at the kitchen table doing homework, humming to herself. Nate sent her to play in her room, then went downstairs. Lena looked up as his footsteps sounded on the stairs. Hey, I'm almost done here. The dryer outlet was a disaster, but it's fixed now. Your lawyer called me today. Her hands stilled on the wire cutters. Jennifer? She said there's a witness, someone who can corroborate your version of the accident. Lena set down the tools carefully, like they might break. Marcus. His name is Marcus Reeves. He was the site foreman that day. Her voice was barely above a whisper. He saw everything. Walsh says it could change your case, make it winnable. I know. She wouldn't look at him. She called me too, explained what it would mean, the depositions, the scrutiny, She stopped. Nate, they're going to dig into every part of my life, including this, us, you and Mia. They'll try to make it look like I'm taking advantage of you, like this is some kind of scam. Is it? Her head snapped up, eyes flashing. What? Are you scamming me? No, of course not. Then I don't care what they say. He sat on the basement steps, bringing himself to her level. Lena, do you want to pursue this case? It doesn't matter what I want. It's the only thing that matters. Do you want to fight Morrison Construction? Do you want them held accountable for what they did to you? Her hands were shaking. Yes, but not if it hurts you and Mia. It won't hurt us. It might be uncomfortable. It might be invasive, but it won't hurt us. He leaned forward. You deserve justice. You deserve compensation for what they stole from you. If your lawyer thinks this witness changes things, then you need to pursue it. I don't have money for a trial. Jennifer's working on contingency, but there are still costs. Filing fees, expert witnesses, medical records. We'll figure it out. Nate, you can barely afford groceries. I've seen your bank statements when you left them on the counter. You're $200 from overdraft most months. I can't let you give up on justice because you're worried about money. He stood, moving closer. Lena, listen to me. You've been living in survival mode for so long that you've forgotten how to fight back. But you're not just surviving anymore. You're stable. You're safe. You have people who care about you. That means you get to fight. People who care about me. She said it like she was testing the words. Yeah, people who care about you. He swallowed hard. I care about you. Mia cares about you. You're not alone in this. Lena's eyes were bright, too bright. Why? Why do you care? I'm nobody. I'm just some homeless woman you found on a street corner. You're the woman who fixed my daughter's room so it's safe. You're the person who makes Mia laugh and helps her with science projects and actually listens when she talks. You're smart and capable and kind, and you've survived things that would have broken other people. He reached out, then stopped, unsure. You're not nobody, Lena. Not to us. The silence stretched between them, heavy with things neither of them knew how to say. Finally, Lena wiped her eyes roughly. Okay, I'll pursue the case. Good. But if it gets too messy, if it starts affecting Mia, then we'll deal with it together. That's what people do when they care about each other. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Nate wanted to hug her, wanted to promise her everything would be okay, but he settled for touching her shoulder briefly before heading back upstairs. The legal process moved slowly at first, then all at once. Jennifer Walsh filed motions. Depositions were scheduled. The witness, Marcus Reeves, gave a statement that was damning in its detail. Morrison Construction's lawyers responded aggressively, filing counter-motions, demanding documentation, trying to delay and deflect. Through it all, Lena stayed focused. She finished the electrical work on the house, then started looking for paying jobs. Nate helped her put together a resume, highlighting her education and skills. The wheelchair made some employers hesitate, but her competence spoke for itself. She got her first paying job 3 weeks after the lawsuit moved forward, a small residential repair for Mrs. Chen's neighbor, who needed new lighting installed. Then another job, a referral from the first. Then a third. People are calling me, Lena said one evening, staring at her phone in disbelief. They want to hire me. They're actually willing to pay me to do electrical work. Because you're good at it, Nate said simply. Because you told everyone I was good at it. I told them the truth. You did the rest. Mia, coloring at the kitchen table, looked up. Lena, when you're rich and famous, will you still live with us? The question hung in the air. Lena had been there for 6 weeks now, long enough that her presence had stopped feeling temporary. Her toothbrush sat in the bathroom cup next to Nate's and Mia's. Her clothes hung in the hall closet. couch cushions had a permanent indentation from where she slept. "I won't be rich and famous, sweetie," Lena said carefully. "But if you were?" Lena looked at Nate, something complicated passing between them. "If I were, I'd still want to be here." "Good." Mia returned to her coloring. The issue settled in her mind. But that night, after Mia was asleep, Nate and Lena had the conversation they'd been avoiding. "I need to start thinking about more permanent housing," Lena said, staring into her tea. "The couch is fine for now, but it's not sustainable. And if the lawsuit settles, I'll have money for my own place." "Is that what you want?" "I don't know what I want." She set down the mug. "A month ago, I was sleeping on a bus stop bench. Now I'm living in a house with people who care about me, doing work I love, pursuing justice for what happened. It feels like someone else's life." "It's your life. You earned this." "Did I? Or did I just get lucky that you drove past at the right moment?" "Both. Life's like that sometimes. Preparation meets opportunity. You were prepared. You had skills, intelligence, resilience. I was just the opportunity that let you use them." Lena was quiet for a long moment. "Mia asked me today if I was going to be her mom." Nate's heart stopped. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that her mom would always be her mom, and nobody could replace that, but that I loved her very much and I wasn't going anywhere." She finally looked at him. "I hope that was okay." "That was perfect." His voice came out rough. "Lena, you don't have to find another place. Not if you don't want to." "I can't stay on your couch forever." "There's a second bedroom. It's small and it's full of junk right now, but we could clear it out, make it yours." "Nate, I'm not asking you to stay out of pity. I'm asking because Mia lights up when you're around. Because coming home to you and her feels right. Because—" He stopped, the truth too big to say. "Because we're better with you here." "You barely know me." "I know enough. I know you're careful with Mia, that you're honest about your limitations, that you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know you make my daughter feel safe and valued. I know you've made this house feel like a home again." He met her eyes. "I know I trust you. Isn't that enough?" Lena's expression crumpled. "What if the lawsuit doesn't go well? What if Morrison wins and I'm back where I started? Then you stay anyway, and we figure it out together." "What if people talk? Your neighbor already thinks I'm taking advantage of you." "Mrs. Chen worries about everyone. It's her hobby. What do you think?" "I think—" Lena's voice broke. "I think I've been alone for so long that I forgot what family feels like. And I think I'm terrified that if I let myself believe this is real, it'll disappear." Nate moved from his chair to the couch, sitting beside her, close enough to offer comfort, far enough to give her space. "It's real. I promise you, it's real." "How can you promise that?" "Because I've been where you are. After Sarah died, I was convinced that every good thing was temporary, that happiness was just a setup for the next disaster. But Mia needed me to be more than that. She needed me to believe that tomorrow could be better than today, even when I didn't believe it myself." He reached for her hand and she let him take it. "So I faked it. I pretended to hope until the pretending became real, and eventually it was real. And if I can't do that? If I'm too broken?" "You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference." He squeezed her hand gently. "Stay, Lena. Clear out the second bedroom. Make it yours. Let us be your family while you figure out everything else." She looked at their joined hands, then at his face, searching for the catch that never came. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I'll stay." "Good." He smiled, and she smiled back, tentative but real. That night, Lena slept on the couch for the last time. The next day, she and Nate cleared out the second bedroom, hauling boxes to the basement and rearranging furniture. Mia helped by making a nest in the pile of old blankets and narrating their progress. "This is going to be Lena's room," Mia announced to no one in particular. "And she's going to stay forever and ever, and we're going to be a family." Lena met Nate's eyes over Mia's head, and the look they shared said everything they couldn't put into words. Maybe it was too fast. Maybe Mrs. Chen was right to worry. Maybe the lawsuit would complicate everything. Or maybe Lena would wake up one day and realize she'd made a mistake. But maybe, just maybe, 3 words on a cold October night had started something that all of them needed. Something that looked like family. something that felt like home. And for now, in this moment, that was enough. The second bedroom became Lena's in increments, the way all real transformations happen. Slowly, then all at once. First came the bed frame Nate found on Craigslist for $40, solid oak with only minor scratches. Then the mattress, purchased new because some things shouldn't be secondhand. Lena protested the expense until Nate pointed out that her back problems from sleeping on the couch were costing more in pain medication than a decent mattress ever would. She moved in on a Sunday morning while Mia rearranged Lena's books by color because that's how libraries should work, according to 7-year-old logic. The room was small, barely big enough for the bed and a dresser, but it had a window that faced east and caught the morning light. Lena sat on the edge of her new bed, running her hands over the quilt Mrs. Chen had brought over, a peace offering wrapped in floral fabric, and something in her posture finally relaxed. "It's perfect," she said quietly. Nate leaned against the doorframe, watching Mia create elaborate organizational systems that would last approximately 3 days. "Yeah? Yeah." She looked up at him, and her eyes were clearer than he'd seen them. "Thank you doesn't feel like enough." "Then don't say it. Just stay." She smiled, and he smiled back, and Mia announced that all the blue books needed to be together because obviously, and the moment passed into something comfortable and real. The lawsuit moved forward with the grinding inevitability of legal machinery. Jennifer Walsh called weekly with updates. Discovery was proceeding, depositions were scheduled, Morrison's lawyers were making noise but nothing substantial. The witness, Marcus Reeves, remained steady in his testimony. He'd worked for Morrison for 15 years before his conscience finally outweighed his paycheck, and his statement was detailed enough to make the defense nervous. "They're going to come after you hard in deposition," Walsh warned Lena during a call Nate overheard from the kitchen. "They'll try to paint you as opportunistic, as someone who's manufactured this living situation to gain sympathy. But I didn't. I know that. You know that. But they'll try anyway. They'll ask about your relationship with Mr. Harper, about Mia, about every dollar you've earned since the accident. You need to be prepared." Lena's hand tightened on the phone. "Okay, I'll be ready." When she hung up, Nate found her staring out the kitchen window at nothing. He set a mug of tea beside her the way he'd learned she liked it. Honey, no milk. "You okay?" "They're going to make this ugly." "Probably." "They're going to drag you and Mia into it." "Probably that too." He pulled out the chair next to her, sitting down. "Lena, look at me." She turned, and he saw the fear there, the old wariness creeping back in. "Whatever they say, whatever they imply, we know the truth. You're not here because you're running a con. You're here because you needed help, and we could give it. That's not shameful. That's human." He reached across the table, and she met him halfway, their fingers tangling together. "Let them come. We'll handle it." "You keep saying that." "Because I keep meaning it." Her deposition was scheduled for a Thursday morning in downtown Chicago. Nate took the day off work, drove her to the law office, and waited in the lobby with coffee that went cold while she spent 4 hours answering questions. When she finally emerged, she looked wrung out, exhausted in a way that went beyond physical. "How bad?" Nate asked. "Bad?" She transferred to her wheelchair. She'd been walking with crutches for short distances lately, part of the physical therapy she'd started, and let him push her to the car. They asked about everything. How we met, how long I've been staying with you, whether we're romantically involved, whether I'm paying rent, whether I'm using Mia to manipulate you. Jesus. I told them the truth. That you offered help, that I accepted it, that I'm not paying rent, but I'm contributing in other ways. That Mia is a wonderful kid who I care about deeply, and that you're... She stopped, color rising in her cheeks. That you're a good man who helped me when no one else would. What did they say to that? Morrison's lawyer asked if good men usually invite homeless women to live with their young daughters, implied that either you were reckless or I was lying about the nature of our relationship. Her voice went flat, angry. Jennifer shut that down fast, told him my living arrangements weren't relevant to whether Morrison violated safety protocols and committed fraud. Nate's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I'm sorry. Don't be. This is what they do, try to make victims feel like they're the ones who did something wrong. She leaned her head against the window. I just hate that they're dragging you into this. I dragged myself into it the night I picked you up. No regrets. They drove in silence for a while. The city slid past the windows, all concrete and steel, and people moving too fast to notice each other. Nate thought about that October night, about the choice that had seemed so simple then and had become so complicated now. But complicated didn't mean wrong. Messy didn't mean mistake. Nate? Yeah? When they asked if we were romantically involved, I said no. Okay. But they asked if I wanted to be, if I had feelings for you beyond gratitude. His heart kicked into a higher rhythm. What did you say? I said my feelings weren't relevant to the case. She was still looking out the window, not at him. Jennifer said that was the right answer, legally speaking. And personally speaking, she finally turned to face him, and the vulnerability in her expression made his chest ache. Personally speaking, I don't know how to separate gratitude from everything else I feel. You saved my life. You gave me a home. You make me feel human again. How am I supposed to know if what I feel is real or just... She gestured helplessly. Just survival instinct making me attached to the person who kept me alive? Nate pulled into their street, parking in the driveway before answering. He killed the engine and turned to face her fully. I don't have an answer for that, but I know that feelings don't have to be sorted and labeled to be valid. You feel what you feel, and that's okay. Whether it's gratitude or friendship or something else, it's all real. He paused, weighing his next words carefully. And for what it's worth, I have the same question from the other direction. What do you mean? I mean, I don't know if what I feel is real or if I'm just lonely, and you're the first person in years who's made this house feel less empty. The confession came out rougher than he intended. Sarah died, and I built walls, kept everyone at a distance except Mia. Told myself it was safer that way, that I was protecting her and protecting myself. But then you showed up, and suddenly the house is full of laughter again, and Mia's happy, and I'm happy, and I don't know if that's real or if I'm just desperate for it to be. Lena reached across the space between them, her hand finding his. Maybe it doesn't matter. What? Maybe the why doesn't matter as much as the what. What we have right now, in this moment, is good. It works. We're better together than apart. She squeezed his hand. Can't that be enough for now, while we figure out everything else? Yeah. He squeezed back. Yeah, that can be enough. They sat in the car for another moment, hands linked, the weight of the conversation settling into something manageable. Then Mia appeared on the front porch, having been dropped off by Mrs. Chen, and the spell broke. Lena, Daddy, come see what I made in art class. Real life rushed back in, demanding and immediate and complicated. But as they went inside together, Lena's hand still warm in his, Nate thought that maybe complicated was okay. Maybe it was even better than simple, because it meant something real enough to get messy. The weeks blurred together in a rhythm that felt almost normal. Lena's electrical business grew steadily. Word of mouth in the neighborhood meant more jobs, better jobs, commercial work that paid enough for her to start saving. She opened a bank account, the first one she'd had since the accident, and cried when she deposited her first real paycheck. Mia thrived in ways that made Nate's heart hurt with gratitude. She'd always been a happy kid, resilient and bright, but Lena's presence added something he hadn't realized was missing. She had someone to talk to about science and math, someone who took her questions seriously and answered them fully. She had a second adult who showed up at school events, who helped with projects, who made her feel like she mattered. My teacher asked if Lena was my mom, Mia said one evening over dinner. Nate's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Lena went very still. What did you tell her? Nate asked carefully. I said she's my Lena, that she lives with us and takes care of me and loves me, but she's not my mom because my mom died. Mia spoke matter-of-factly, the way she always did about Sarah now, sad but not devastated, remembering but not dwelling. Mrs. Peterson said that's a good answer. It is, Lena said quietly. It's a perfect answer. Good, because I didn't want to make you sad by saying the wrong thing. Mia returned to her chicken nuggets, the issue resolved in her mind. Later that night, after Mia was asleep, Lena found Nate in the kitchen doing dishes. "I need to tell you something," she said. Nate's stomach dropped. Those words never preceded good news. "Okay." Jennifer called this afternoon. Morrison's lawyers made a settlement offer. He turned off the water, dried his hands. "How much?" $250,000. The number hung in the air between them. It was more money than Nate had ever had at one time, more than he'd make in 3 years at the warehouse. For Lena, it was life-changing. "That's good, right? That's what you needed?" "It's not enough." Her voice was hard, angry. "My medical bills alone were over $300,000. I lost my scholarship, my education, my career. I've been homeless for months. And they think $250,000 makes that okay? What does Jennifer say?" "She says it's a lowball offer, that they're testing to see if I'm desperate enough to take it. She wants to counter with $800,000. Lena wheeled closer, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair. "But here's the thing. If I reject this offer and we go to trial, there's a chance I lose everything. The witness could recant, the jury could side with Morrison, I could end up with nothing, and owing legal fees I can't pay." "What do you want to do?" "I want to fight. I want them to admit what they did, to pay for stealing my life. But I'm terrified that if I push too hard, I'll lose the only chance I have at stability." She looked up at him. "What would you do?" "I can't make this choice for you." "I'm not asking you to make it. I'm asking for your opinion." Nate pulled out a chair, sitting so they were eye level. "Okay, my opinion is that you shouldn't settle for less than what you're worth out of fear. Morrison's lawyers are counting on you being desperate, on you taking whatever they offer because you need it. But you're not desperate anymore. You have a home, you have work, you have people who will support you no matter what happens." He paused. "You get to fight from a position of strength now. That's what I gave you that night, not charity, but the stability to stop surviving and start demanding justice." Lena's eyes were bright. "And if I lose?" "Then you lose. But at least you'll know you didn't roll over for them." She nodded slowly, decision crystallizing in her expression. "I'm going to counter. I'm going to fight." "Good." She called Jennifer the next morning and authorized the counteroffer, $800,000 plus a public admission of wrongdoing from Morrison Construction. The lawyer sounded surprised but pleased. "This is going to make them angry," Walsh warned. "Good," Lena said. "I'm angry too." Morrison's response came fast and ugly. They rejected the counteroffer and filed motions to dismiss based on statute of limitations, claiming that Lena had waited too long to file suit. Jennifer fought back with documentation showing that Lena had tried to file earlier but hadn't been able to afford the court fees. The judge sided with Lena, and Morrison's lawyers got nastier. They subpoenaed Nate's financial records, trying to prove that Lena was paying him rent under the table and thus not as destitute as she claimed. They subpoenaed Mrs. Chen, asking her about Lena's character and whether she'd witnessed anything inappropriate. They even sent an investigator to Mia's school, asking teachers if they'd noticed anything concerning about Lena's relationship with the child. That was the line Nate wouldn't let them cross. He called Jennifer Walsh himself, bypassing Lena entirely. "They're harassing my daughter's school." "I know. I'm filing a motion to limit the scope of discovery. They've crossed into intimidation." "Will it work?" "Probably. But Nate, I need to be honest with you. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Morrison has deep pockets and a reputation to protect. They'll use every tactic they can to make this case go away." "Including going after Mia?" "They won't hurt her, but they'll try to use your relationship with Lena to undermine her credibility. Make it seem like she's unstable, opportunistic, using a child to manipulate sympathy. Can they do that?" "They can try. Whether they'll succeed is another question." Walsh paused. "How's Lena handling this?" "She's strong, but she's scared." "Tell her to stay strong a little longer. We're close to trial, and Morrison knows it. That's why they're getting desperate." When Nate relayed the conversation to Lena, she was in her room, organizing electrical supplies for the next day's job. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing more closed with each sentence. "They went to Mia's school," she said finally. "Yeah." "They questioned her teachers about me." "They did." Nate, I can't. She stopped, pressing her hands to her face. I can't let them use Mia against me. If this is hurting her, it's not hurting her. She doesn't even know about it. But what if she finds out? What if kids at school say something? What if... Lena. He moved into the room, kneeling beside her wheelchair. Look at me. Mia is fine. Her teachers love you. Mrs. Peterson told the investigator that you're the best thing that ever happened to our family, and she had the secretary escort him off school property. He took her hands in his. You're not hurting us. Morrison is, and we're not going to let them win by making you feel like this is your fault. How are you so calm about this? I'm not calm. I'm furious. But being angry doesn't help Mia, and it doesn't help you. Fighting back helps. Refusing to be intimidated helps. He squeezed her hands. We're going to win this, Lena. Not because we have better lawyers or more money, but because we're telling the truth and they're not. That has to count for something. Does it? In the real world, does truth actually matter against money and power? I have to believe it does. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his shoulder, and he held her while she shook with silent tears. It was the first time he'd seen her truly break since that first night, and the trust it took for her to let him see this vulnerability made something shift in his chest. I'm so tired, she whispered. I'm so tired of fighting. I know, but you don't have to fight alone anymore. They stayed like that for a long time, her tears soaking into his shirt, his arms steady around her. Somewhere in the house, the furnace kicked on. A car drove past outside. Normal sounds in a normal house, except nothing about this was normal anymore. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were red but clearer. Thank you. Always. She smiled, watery but real, and touched his face with a tenderness that made his breath catch. For a moment, he thought she might kiss him. For a moment, he wanted her to, but she just traced her thumb along his jaw and whispered, You're the best person I've ever known. I'm really not. You are to me. The moment stretched between them, full of possibility and fear and all the things they weren't saying. Then Mia's voice called from down the hall, something about needing help with her math homework, and reality intruded again. Lena pulled back and Nate stood, and they both pretended that something fundamental hadn't just shifted between them. 2 weeks later, Morrison Construction made a new offer. $400,000, no admission of wrongdoing, case closed. It's still not enough, Jennifer said over the phone. But it's progress. They're feeling the pressure. Lena looked at Nate across the kitchen table. Mia was at school, the house quiet except for the tick of the clock on the wall. What do you think? She asked. I think you know what you need to do. She did. She rejected the offer and told Jennifer to prepare for trial. Morrison's lawyers requested one more settlement conference before trial. A last-ditch effort to avoid the courtroom, Jennifer explained. Lena agreed and Nate insisted on coming with her. The conference room was all polished wood and leather chairs, the kind of space designed to intimidate. Morrison's legal team, 3 lawyers in suits that cost more than Nate's car, sat on one side. Jennifer, Lena, and Nate sat on the other. The lead lawyer, a man named Carlson with silver hair and cold eyes, laid out Morrison's final offer. $500,000, structured settlement over 20 years, confidentiality agreement, no admission of wrongdoing. It's a generous offer, Ms. Ward, Carlson said. More than generous, considering the weakness of your case. Weakness? Jennifer's voice was sharp. We have a witness who will testify that your client knowingly violated safety protocols. You have a disgruntled former employee with an axe to grind. The jury will see that. The jury will see the medical records, the falsified safety documents, the pattern of violations your client has across multiple sites. Carlson's smile didn't reach his eyes. Perhaps, or perhaps they'll see a woman who's made a series of poor choices and is now looking for someone to blame. A woman who's currently living with a man she barely knows, using his child to create a sympathetic narrative. That's enough. Nate's voice cut through the room like ice. You don't get to talk about my daughter. Mr. Harper, you're not a party to this case. No, but I'm a witness to what your client did. I'm the person who found Lena freezing on a street corner because your company destroyed her life and then buried the evidence. So you can question her choices all you want, but you don't get to drag my daughter into your narrative. Carlson studied him for a moment, reassessing. 600,000. Final offer. Take it, or we'll see you in court. Lena looked at Jennifer, who nodded slightly. Then she looked at Nate. He saw the question in her eyes and knew what she was asking. Is this enough? Is this justice? He couldn't answer that for her. All he could do was reach under the table and take her hand, letting her know that whatever she chose, he'd stand by it. Lena turned back to Carlson, her spine straight, her voice steady. 750,000, admission of wrongdoing and mandatory safety improvements at all Morrison sites, or we go to trial. That's absurd. That's my final counter. She didn't blink. You've spent the last 20 minutes trying to paint me as desperate and opportunistic, but I'm neither. I'm angry, and I'm right, and I'm not backing down. Carlson's jaw tightened. We'll take it to the jury. Then I'll see you in court. They left the conference room with nothing resolved, but everything changed. In the elevator down, Jennifer was grinning. That was incredible, she said. You stood your ground perfectly. They're not going to settle, Lena said. Maybe not, but now they know you're serious, and that's half the battle. In the car, Lena was quiet, staring out the window at the city that had swallowed her whole and was only now starting to spit her back out. Did I do the right thing? She asked. You did the brave thing, Nate said. Whether it's right, we'll find out. She reached across the console, and he met her halfway, their fingers tangling together the way they always seemed to now. It was becoming a habit, this reaching for each other, a reflex born of shared battles and late-night conversations, and the slow, steady building of something neither of them had names for yet. Whatever happens, Lena said quietly, I want you to know that this, you and Mia and this life we've built, it's already more than I ever thought I'd have again. Even if Morrison wins, even if I never see a penny, I got this. That's not nothing. It's everything, Nate said, and meant it with his whole heart. The call came on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks before the trial was scheduled to begin. Nate was at work, stacking boxes in the warehouse, when his phone buzzed with Jennifer Walsh's number. His hands went cold before he even answered. They settled, Jennifer said without preamble. The box Nate was holding hit the concrete floor with a crash. What? Morrison settled. $700,000, public admission of safety violations, mandatory third-party safety audits at all their sites for the next 5 years, and a written apology to Lena. Jennifer's voice was bright with triumph. They caved completely. I just got the paperwork. Nate sat down hard on a nearby pallet, his legs suddenly unreliable. 700,000. Plus the safety improvements. They're worth more than the money. Honestly, it means this won't happen to someone else. She paused. Nate, she won. Against a multi-million-dollar company with unlimited legal resources, Lena won. Does she know? I called you first. I thought she might want you there when she heard. I'm leaving now. He clocked out without explanation, ignoring Dave's protests about the unfinished shipment. The drive home took 15 minutes, but felt like hours. His hand shook on the steering wheel. $700,000. Enough to change everything. Enough to give Lena back the future Morrison had stolen. Enough, maybe, for her to leave. The thought hit him like a fist to the gut. She'd stayed because she needed to, because she had nowhere else to go. But now she'd have options. Her own place, accessible and safe. A fresh start somewhere without the memories of freezing on street corners. A life that didn't require her to sleep on someone's couch out of necessity. He pulled into the driveway and sat there for a moment, trying to untangle the knot of joy and fear in his chest. He was happy for her. Of course he was happy for her. This was everything she deserved, everything they'd fought for. But the house would feel so empty without her. Mia would be devastated, and he couldn't finish that thought. Lena was in the kitchen when he came in, working on an estimate for a commercial rewiring job. She looked up, surprised. You're home early. Everything okay? Jennifer called. Her pen stilled on the paper. And? They settled. All of it. Everything you asked for. The pen fell from her fingers. She stared at him, her face blank with shock, like her brain couldn't process the words. Everything? 700,000. Public admission. Safety audits, written apology. He moved closer, crouching beside her wheelchair. You won, Lena. You actually won. Her hands came up to cover her mouth. And then she was crying. Not the quiet, controlled tears he'd seen before, but huge, racking sobs that shook her whole body. He pulled her into his arms, and she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had just shifted on its axis. I won, she whispered against his shoulder. I actually won. You did. You stood up to them and refused to back down, and you won. She cried for a long time, and he held her through it, smoothing her hair, murmuring reassurances that came from somewhere deeper than conscious thought. When she finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and her eyes were red, and she'd never looked more beautiful to him. What happens now? She asked. Now you sign the paperwork, the money gets transferred, and you get to decide what comes next. He tried to smile. You're free, Lena. Really free. Something flickered across her face. Not quite happiness, more complicated than that. Free. Yeah. He stood, putting distance between them before he could say something he'd regret. You should call Jennifer back. She'll need to walk you through the settlement terms. Nate, I'll make coffee. This is celebration worthy. He escaped to the kitchen before she could finish whatever she'd been about to say. His hands were steady as he measured out coffee grounds, filled the pot with water, pressed the button to start brewing. Normal motions. Routine. But inside his heart was racing. She would leave. Of course she would leave. That's what people did when they got their lives back. They moved on. And he would be happy for her because that's what you did when you loved someone. You let them go. The word stopped him cold. Love. When had that happened? When had gratitude and friendship shifted into something deeper, more dangerous? He couldn't pinpoint the moment. Maybe it had been gradual, built up through late-night conversations and shared meals and watching her help Mia with homework. Or maybe it had been instant, back on that October night when she'd looked at him with those wary eyes and asked about the catch. It didn't matter. She was leaving, and he would deal with it, and life would go on. Nate? He turned. Lena had wheeled into the kitchen, phone in hand, expression serious. Jennifer explained the settlement structure. The money comes in installments, half up front, the rest over 2 years. She recommended I work with a financial advisor to invest it properly. She paused. She also said I should think about what I want long-term. Housing, career, education. Now's the time to make plans. That's smart. You should finish your degree. I looked into it. I could re-enroll, maybe even get some of my credits to transfer. With online classes, I could work while I study. She was watching him carefully. Jennifer also mentioned that I should consider where I want to live. Chicago's expensive, but there are other cities with good engineering programs and lower cost of living. Right, sure, that makes sense. He poured coffee into 2 mugs, focusing on the mundane task. You've got options now. That's good. Is it? Of course it is. That's what we wanted. That's what this whole fight was about, giving you back your choices. And if I choose to stay here? His hand jerked, sloshing coffee onto the counter. What? If I choose to stay in this house with you and Mia, is that allowed? She wheeled closer. Or were you just being kind to the homeless woman, and now that I'm not homeless anymore, the kindness expires? That's not, Lena, that's not fair. What's not fair? Her voice rose, sharp with emotion. You've spent 3 months telling me this is my home, that I'm part of this family, that I belong here. But the second I have money, you're already planning my exit. So which is it, Nate? Do I belong, or was this always temporary? I thought you'd want to leave. Why would you think that? Because you can. The words came out louder than he intended. Because you have $700,000 and a future. And you don't need to live in a 2-bedroom house with a warehouse worker and his kid anymore. You can have your own place, your own life, everything you lost. I don't want everything I lost. That life is gone, and I'm not the same person who lived it. She moved closer, forcing him to look at her. I want this life. The one where I wake up to Mia singing in the shower and eat breakfast with people who actually see me. Where I do work I love and come home to a family that makes me feel human. Why would I give that up for some apartment where I'd be alone again? You wouldn't be alone. You'd have friends, colleagues. I have those things here, and I have you. She reached for his hand. Nate, I know this started as charity. I know you helped me because you're a good person who couldn't drive past someone in need. But it's not charity anymore, is it? Somewhere along the way, this became real. He looked at their joined hands, his heart hammering against his ribs. Lena, I'm in love with you. The words came out quiet but firm, like she'd been holding them back for too long and couldn't contain them anymore. I don't know when it happened. Maybe it was gradual, or maybe it was that first night when you said, "Come with me." Like those 3 words were the simplest thing in the world. But I love you, and I love Mia, and I don't want to leave. The money doesn't change that. Nate couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at her while his entire understanding of their situation rearranged itself. You love me, he repeated stupidly. Yes. Even though He gestured helplessly at himself. I work in a warehouse. I barely make enough to keep the lights on. My house is falling apart. My car is 15 years old. I can't give you the kind of life you deserve. The kind of life I deserve? Lena's voice went sharp. Nate, 6 months ago, I was sleeping on a street corner waiting to die. You gave me warmth and safety and dignity when no one else would. You let your daughter love me without conditions. You fought beside me against people who tried to destroy me twice. She pulled him closer. You gave me everything that matters. Why would I want more? Because you can have more now. I don't want more. I want this. I want you. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and perfect and terrifying. Nate thought about all the reasons this was a bad idea, the power imbalance, the complications, what people would say. Mrs. Chen's warning echoed in his head. Good people sometimes make bad choices trying to help wrong people. But Lena wasn't wrong people. She was just people. And somewhere in the last 3 months, she'd stopped being the woman he rescued and become the person who made his house feel like home. I love you too, he said, and watched her face transform. I've been trying not to because I didn't want you to feel obligated or pressured. But I love you, Lena. I love the way you explain electrical circuits to Mia, like she's a university student. I love that you reorganized my entire kitchen and didn't apologize for it. I love coming home to you. He took a shaky breath. I love you. And I'm terrified that I'm taking advantage of you somehow, that you're confusing gratitude with something else. She kissed him. It was soft and tentative and perfect, and when she pulled back, she was smiling through tears. That wasn't gratitude, she said. That was love. Learn the difference. He laughed, and then he was kissing her again, properly this time, his hands cupping her face like she was something precious. And she was. She was precious and strong, and his, if she wanted to be. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lena rested her forehead against his. So I'm staying, she said. You're staying. And we're doing this, actually doing this. If you want to. I want to. She pulled back enough to look him in the eyes. But I want to do it right. I'm going to use some of the settlement money to make this house actually accessible. Ramps, wider doorways, a roll-in shower in the bathroom. I'm going to contribute to rent and groceries. I'm going to finish my degree and build my business properly. I'm not going to be someone you have to take care of. I don't take care of you. We take care of each other. Exactly. Partners. Equal partners. Equal partners. He agreed and kissed her again because he could, because she was staying, because somehow against all odds, this was working. They were still kissing when Mia's bus dropped her off. They broke apart at the sound of the front door, both flushed and grinning like teenagers. Mia took one look at them and shrieked with joy. Are you kissing? Are you boyfriend and girlfriend now? Are you going to get married? Can I be in the wedding? Mia, slow down, Nate started. Can Lena be my mom? Not my real mom because my real mom died, but my other mom? The one who's here? Mia was bouncing with excitement, her backpack forgotten on the floor. Lena looked at Nate, something vulnerable and hopeful in her expression. He nodded, giving her permission to answer however she wanted. Would you like that? Lena asked Mia. If I stayed forever and we were a real family? Yes! Mia launched herself at Lena, nearly knocking the wheelchair backward. Yes, yes, yes! I've been wishing for this since the volcano project. Since the volcano? Nate asked. That's when I knew she was going to stay. Nobody helps that much with science unless they're family. Mia pulled back, suddenly serious. You are going to stay, right? You're not going to leave like people do in movies? I'm staying, Lena promised. I just found out today that I won my lawsuit, which means I have money to build a real life here. And I want to build it with you and your dad, if that's okay. It's more than okay. It's perfect. Mia hugged her again, then pulled back with a thought. Wait, if you have money, does that mean we can get a dog? Mia, what? Lena's rich now, and rich people have dogs. It's basically a rule. Lena laughed, the sound bright and free. Maybe we can talk about a dog after we finish the other renovations. What renovations? Making the house work better for me. Ramps and wider doors and a better bathroom. Lena smoothed Mia's hair. So I can get around easily and not have to ask for help with everything. Oh, that makes sense. Mia thought about it. Can my room be pink since we're renovating? Your room is already pink. More pink, like really pink, princess pink. We'll see, Nate said, the automatic parent response that meant probably not. That evening, after Mia was in bed, Nate and Lena sat on the couch going through the settlement documents Jennifer had emailed over. The numbers were staggering. After legal fees and taxes, Lena would net approximately $480,000 over the next 2 years. It was more money than either of them had ever imagined having. The financial advisor Jennifer recommended suggested putting most of it in investments, Lena said, scrolling through the email. But I want to use some for the renovations, maybe $50,000? That should cover ramps, bathroom modifications, widening doorways, updating the electrical panel to handle everything properly. $50,000 to renovate a house you don't own, Nate said slowly. She looked up. What? This is my house. Well, I rent it, but still. You're going to pour $50,000 into a rental property? It's where we live. Where else would I put it? Lena, think about this practically. What if the landlord raises the rent? What if he decides to sell? You'd lose all that investment. She set down her phone. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, he paused, the idea forming as he spoke. What if we bought a house, together? Something that's actually ours. We could use your settlement as a down payment, get a mortgage for the rest. Find a place that's already accessible or can be modified. Make it exactly what we need. Buy a house, Lena repeated. Together. If you want to. I know it's fast and maybe it's crazy, but we're already living together, already building a life. Why not make it official? She was quiet for a long moment, and Nate's stomach twisted with anxiety. Maybe he'd pushed too hard, assumed too much. I want my name on the deed, Lena said finally. Of course. Equal partners, remember? And I want input on the neighborhood, somewhere with good schools for Mia. Absolutely. And a yard, a real yard where Mia can play, and we can have a garden. We can do that. She smiled slow and warm. Then yes, let's buy a house. Let's make this permanent. They sealed it with a kiss that turned into several kisses, and then Lena pulled back with a thought. We should tell Mia about the settlement. She'll want to know. Tomorrow, tonight, let's just... He pulled her closer. Let's just be us for a while. The next morning, they sat Mia down and explained about the lawsuit, the settlement, and what it meant. Mia listened with the serious concentration she brought to important topics, asking questions about Morrison construction and safety violations and why it took so long to make them say sorry. So you have lots of money now? Mia asked Lena. Enough money to be stable and safe, yes. Good. You deserve it. Mia said it with such simple certainty that both adults felt their throats tighten. Does this mean we're getting a bigger house? Maybe, Nate said. We're going to start looking. Can I have my own bathroom? Emma has her own bathroom, and she says it's the best. We'll see what we can find. They spent the next 3 months house hunting. Lena enrolled in online engineering courses through a state university that accepted most of her previous credits. Her electrical business grew steadily, and she hired an assistant, a young woman fresh out of trade school who needed experience. Nate kept his warehouse job for now, but started looking at better options, places with real benefits and advancement potential. They found the house in early spring, a modest 3-bedroom with a flat lot and a yard big enough for Mia's dreams of a garden. It needed work. The kitchen was outdated, the floors needed refinishing, the electrical was barely adequate, but Lena saw potential where others saw problems. "I can rewire the whole place," she said, standing in the empty living room. "Update everything to modern code, install smart systems, make it perfect." "That's a lot of work," Nate said. "I like work. And this time I'm building something that's mine, ours." She squeezed his hand. "Our home." They closed on the house in May, almost exactly 7 months after that October night. Mia cried happy tears when they handed her the key to her new room, not Princess Pink, but a soft lavender she'd chosen herself. Mrs. Chen came to the housewarming party and grudgingly admitted that maybe Nathan had made the right choice after all. "You are happy," she said to Lena, watching Mia chase butterflies in the backyard. "This is good. I was wrong to worry." "You were right to worry," Lena said. "If I'd been in your position, I would have worried too. But sometimes the risky choice turns out to be the right one." The renovations took 6 months. Lena did most of the electrical work herself, teaching Mia as she went, turning the project into ongoing lessons about circuits and safety and building things that last. They installed ramps at both entrances, widened the doorways, created a bathroom that Lena could navigate independently. But they also added touches that were purely theirs: a reading nook in Mia's room, a workshop in the garage for Lena's business, a deck off the kitchen where they could eat breakfast on summer mornings. By the time winter rolled around again, 1 year since that frozen October night, the house was finished. Lena's business had grown enough that she could be selective about jobs. Nate had gotten promoted to a supervisor position at a different warehouse with better pay and benefits. Mia was thriving in 2nd grade, already talking about science camp next summer. On a Saturday morning in December, Nate woke up to find Lena already awake, staring at the ceiling. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Nothing's wrong. I'm just..." She turned to face him. "A year ago, I was homeless and hopeless. I'd given up on everything except surviving one more day, and now I'm here, in a house we own, with a family that loves me, and a future that feels real. It doesn't seem possible." "But it is possible. It happened. Because you pulled over that night. Because you said 3 words that changed everything." "Come with me," he quoted softly. "Come with me," she agreed. 3 words that turned into this whole life. He kissed her forehead, pulling her closer. "Best 3 words I ever said." They stayed in bed a little longer, listening to Mia sing in her room, the sound drifting through their home. Eventually, they got up and made breakfast together, the routine comfortable and familiar. Mia appeared in her pajamas, sleepy and sweet, climbing into Lena's lap for morning cuddles before cartoons. Later that day, Nate and Lena sat on the deck while Mia played in the yard. The winter sun was weak but present, and the air had that crisp quality that made everything feel sharper, clearer. "I've been thinking," Nate said. "Dangerous," Lena teased. "About making this official. Really official." She went still. "What do you mean?" He pulled a small box from his pocket. Nothing fancy, not yet, just a placeholder he'd bought the day before. Inside was a simple silver ring, delicate and perfect. "I mean, I want to marry you. I want Mia to have the mom she's been asking for. I want us to be a family in every way that matters." He opened the box. Lena Ward, "Will you marry me?" Her hands flew to her mouth, eyes bright with tears. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And I know it's fast, and I know people will say we're rushing, but I don't care. Do you?" "No." She was laughing and crying at the same time. "No, I don't care what people say. Yes, yes, I'll marry you." He slid the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him into a kiss that tasted like joy and promise and everything good that comes from choosing courage over fear. Mia, who had apparently been spying from the yard, let out a shriek of pure happiness and came running. "You're getting married! I knew it! I told Emma you were going to get married, and she didn't believe me, but I was right!" She threw herself at both of them, nearly knocking everyone over. "Can I wear a fancy dress? Can I help plan the wedding? Can we have cake?" Yes to all of those things, Lena said, laughing. When's the wedding? We just got engaged 30 seconds ago, sweetheart. We haven't planned that far yet. Can it be soon? I want to tell everyone at school that Lena's my mom. She's already your mom, Nate said gently. The wedding just makes it official. Mia thought about that, then nodded, satisfied. Okay, but I still want cake. They got married the following spring, in the backyard of their house under a cherry tree that was just beginning to bloom. It was small and simple. Just family and close friends, Mrs. Chen crying happy tears in the front row. Mia served as the official approval officer, a role she took extremely seriously, complete with a clipboard where she'd written, "I approve," in purple marker. Jennifer Walsh came, bringing a gift and a story about how this case had reminded her why she became a lawyer in the first place. Marcus Reeves sent a card with a note saying he was glad his testimony had helped, that he slept better knowing he'd finally done the right thing. The ceremony was short, the vows personal. Nate promised to always pull over for people who need help, to never stop believing in the power of small kindnesses. Lena promised to always choose courage over fear, to build a life worthy of the second chance she'd been given. And Mia, when asked if she approved of the marriage, shouted, "Yes!" loud enough that the neighbors probably heard. Afterward, there was cake, chocolate, Mia's choice, and dancing in the yard and toasts that made everyone laugh and cry in equal measure. As the sun set and the party wound down, Nate found Lena sitting on the deck steps, watching Mia chase fireflies in the growing darkness. "Happy?" he asked, sitting beside her. Deliriously, she leaned her head on his shoulder. "I keep thinking about that night, how close I came to giving up completely. Another few hours and I probably would have been gone. But you weren't. You held on. I held on, and you pulled over, and everything changed." She lifted her head to look at him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd just driven past?" "All the time. And then I'm grateful I didn't." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter, legally and officially now, capture light in her small hands. The house behind them glowed warm in the twilight, every light Lena had installed burning bright. It wasn't a big house or a fancy house, but it was theirs, built on foundation of 3 words spoken on the coldest October night, when a man who could barely afford groceries decided that kindness mattered more than convenience. 2 years after that night, Lena's business had grown into a full electrical contracting company specializing in accessible design. She employed 4 people and was invited to speak at trade schools about adaptive technology and inclusive building practices. She'd finished her engineering degree with honors, proving that setbacks don't have to be endings. Nate left the warehouse for a job in facilities management at a hospital, better pay, and real benefits, the kind of work where he could see himself building a career. He still remembered what it felt like to live paycheck to paycheck, and he never forgot to pull over when someone needed help. Mia grew into a confident, curious kid who wanted to be an electrical engineer like her mom, her Lena mom, as she carefully specified, because she had 2 moms and both of them were heroes. She told anyone who'd listen about the night her parents met, embellishing the story with each retelling until it became family legend. Morrison Construction faced mandatory safety audits and eventually settled 3 more lawsuits from injured workers. The industry trade publications ran articles about the case, about the woman who'd refused to back down and the company that finally faced consequences. Lena framed the public apology and hung it in her office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that speaking truth to power sometimes actually works. On the 2nd anniversary of their first meeting, Nate took Lena back to that bus stop. It was still abandoned, the shelter still broken, the bench still missing. But someone had painted over the graffiti, and there were flowers growing in the cracked concrete where Lena had waited for a bus that would never come. "I used to dream about this place," Lena said, staring at the empty corner. "Nightmares, usually. About being back here, being that hopeless again. And now? Now it's just a street corner. The power it had over me is gone." She turned to him. "Because of you." "Because of us," he corrected. "I gave you a ride. You did everything else. We did it together." She took his hand. That's what family does. They drove home together, to the house they'd built, and the daughter they were raising, and the life they'd created from 3 words and stubborn hope. It wasn't a perfect life. There were still hard days and money worries and challenges that felt insurmountable, but they faced them together, equal partners in every way that mattered. Sometimes Nate still thought about that October night, about the choice that had seemed so simple in the moment and had become so complicated afterward, about how close he'd come to driving past, to letting someone else's problem stay someone else's problem, about how one moment of choosing kindness over convenience had transformed 3 lives completely. He thought about it, and he was grateful. Grateful that he'd pulled over. Grateful that Lena had gotten in the car. Grateful for every hard choice and scary moment that had led them here, to this life they'd built together. Because 3 words, "come with me," hadn't just offered shelter from a freezing night. They'd offered possibility. A chance to build something real from the wreckage of what was lost. A reminder that sometimes the people we save end up saving us right back. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, 3 words spoken on the coldest October night become the foundation of a love that changes everything. They became a family not because of biology or obligation, but because they chose each other every single day. Chose courage over fear. Chose vulnerability over self-protection. Chose to believe that kindness isn't weakness, and help isn't charity, and love isn't something you have to earn. Years later, when Mia was older and asked how her parents fell in love, they told her the truth. That love isn't always dramatic or instant. Sometimes it's quiet and gradual, built in stolen moments and shared struggles. Sometimes it starts with 3 simple words and grows into something that fills a whole house with light. Come with me. 3 words that offered warmth on a frozen night. 3 words that built a family. 3 words that proved once and for all that the smallest acts of kindness can change the world. One life, one choice, one cold October night at a time.